Like It or Not with Benjamin Dixon starts now.
Welcome to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth and not care who doesn't like it. Today is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. James Bubba Williams, DJ Exclusive. Thank you for joining me this morning, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good, sir. How about yourself, man?
I'm good, man. We are covering the story out of Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis, right outside of Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis. We've been following the shooting of Daunte Wright, and we have the murder. Actually, I want to correct myself. The murder of Daunte Wright. And I want to begin with some of the updates from that area. Last night, the officer who killed Daunte Wright was identified as Kim Porter, a veteran officer of nearly 25 years. She was also once the president of the Brooklyn Center Police Officers Association, the police union. And in that role, she has represented other officers who have been involved with deadly shootings. Now, in a press conference yesterday about the murder of Daunte Wright, Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tim Gannon played a clip of the body cam from the police officer who killed him. I want us to take a look at the image. Warning: it is graphic footage. The only reason I'm gonna play it, and I hope my producers cut it as I asked them to cut it before the actual shooting. I want us to see exactly how long she held a gun, only to say that she didn't realize it was a gun versus a taser. 25-year veteran, leader of the police union. Okay, they just gave me a note, said that it wasn't edited, so we're not going to play it. We're going to skip that first side. We're not going to play it because it wasn't edited. But she held that gun for at least 6, 7, 8 seconds, even more. And she said that she did not realize that it was a gun versus a taser. 25-year veteran, right? She president of the police union there in her city. And she had enough time to realize, one, the weight is entirely different. Two, the touch of the gun is entirely different. Now, again, we're going to skip that side, Tunde. After playing the video, Chief Gannon gave his own justification for why he was killed, why Daunte Wright was killed, saying the officer, quote, accidentally used the firearm and when they actually meant to use the taser. Now, let's look at the conversation from the chief at his press conference yesterday.
As you can hear, the officer, while struggling with Mr. Wright, shouts, "Taser, taser," several times. That is part of the officer's training prior to deploying a taser, which is a less lethal device. That is done to make her partners aware, as well as the subject, that a taser deployment will be imminent. During this encounter, however, the officer drew their handgun instead of their taser. For informational purposes, we train with our handguns on our dominant side and our taser on our weak side. So if you're right-handed, you carry your firearm on your right side and you carry your taser on the left. This is done purposefully and is trained. As I watch the video and listen to the officer's commands, it is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright.
So that's how he's framing the conversation. Again, now this is a 25-year vet, former president of the police union. And I'm sorry, anybody who's handled guns know that there's a dynamic difference between the weight of a gun and the weight of a taser, especially if you have a 25-year experience. Chief Gannon eventually had enough of the questions and an abrupt cut to his own part of the press conference, cutting it short, leaving the mayor and the city manager to answer the remaining questions. Let's take a look at the chief walking out when he had enough.
Significant delay. Are you aware that there's a significant delay in getting tabs and things of this nature from the DMV? So even people who have purchased tabs are unable to get them because there's a 2 to 3 month backlog. Are you aware of that? And is your staff also aware of that? And have you made any type of recommendations to your staff to be mindful that we're in the middle of a pandemic and don't pull people over for tabs, particularly because there is a significant delay in getting those tabs from the Department of Motor Vehicles. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
Police.
I am aware of that.
Is your staff aware of that?
Yes, they are.
Chief.
That was the last question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, may I ask you, in that video, the female officer clearly made a fatal mistake. She did.
I love the framing of the question. In the middle of a pandemic, Dante Wright was pulled over for some BS. In the middle of a pandemic, he was pulled over for something that he should not have been pulled over for because of the difficulty and the time that it takes to get the issue resolved with the Department of Motor Vehicles. And the specific question that made him walk away is not only were you aware, Mr. Chief, but is your staff aware? Meaning that this could have all been avoided had they not been vultures waiting for the chance to pounce on anyone that they can get their hands on. Now, neither the Brooklyn Center city manager nor the mayor could explain why the police chief left as he did, with the mayor even skiing in front of all the reporters as if the chief was dealing with some type of urgent thing that was preventing him from taking more questions. Chief Gannon eventually returned and commented that the, quote, officer is afforded due process just like anybody else, except for Dante Wright. Let's take a look at that clip.
Yes, sir.
Chief, may I ask you directly as I asked the mayor, do you believe the officer who fired this fatal shot, and I understand there's due process, we get that, but ultimately she shot and killed a 20-year-old man. The mayor had indicated she should be terminated. What's your position on that?
My position is that officer afforded due process just like anybody else does. She has the right to be heard. She has the right to give her statement. She has the right to tell what she felt, what she thought, not what I thought, not what I saw, but what she thought and that may have an impact. She's on administrative time out.
Can you tell us?
She will not be returning to duty until this investigation has run its course. And she, for all intents and purposes, I think we can look at the video and ascertain whether or not she'll be returning.
So can you tell us?
Now, Brooklyn Center Mayor Mike Elliott said he believed that the officer who killed Dante Wright should be released of her duties, meaning she should be fired. Let's listen in.
We cannot afford to make mistakes that lead to the loss of life of other people in our profession. And so I do fully support releasing the officer of her duties.
Does he support her being fired?
I do.
Now, there's a lot more for us to discuss on this particular story. We have more clips and more information that we want to bring to you, but I want to pause here and we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from this break, we're going to bring the whole team on screen and discuss this even further, because the foolishness, the intensity of the night, all the protests that took place and the kind of reaction that we saw from the police across the country. And I really want us to discuss the way the police responded to protesters as opposed to how they responded to the insurrectionists, the terrorists on January 6th. We'll talk about all that when we come back after a brief break. James, it's in your hands, more likely than not, after this.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Make sure that y'all come on in, get situated, get settled. Make sure that you're hitting that like button while you're here this morning. Like, comment, subscribe, so you know when Like and None is always going down. And make sure that you check out our social media pages, y'all.
When we rewind, it's so nice. We time, you I know how to make me feel right. I can't help that sweet talk. I'm already on my way. I'm pulling up, don't be late.
Rebecca, good morning. Yes, ma'am. I'm doing good, doing good. Mama, good morning. Mama Gwen, if you were in the building. Sensation, good morning, Sensation. Alicia, good morning. I see you. Martha, good morning. Alicia, love you too. Esther, good morning. Anna, good morning, ma'am.
Rewind, it feels so nice.
Ma'am T, I appreciate that, Ma'am T.
I'm done waiting. Done wasting my time. Sweet talk.
David, good morning, good morning. I appreciate that love. Thank you.
Don't be late. I'm cutting through all the lanes. Sweet talk.
Arcon 105, I appreciate that. You know, whatever I can to get that day started good.
I'm already my way on my way.
Magdalene Moon, good morning. Fair girl, good morning. Queese, I appreciate that.
All right. Welcome back. Okay. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Like it or not, Rebecca's here with us. James, DJ Exclusive, always doing his thing. Of course, you know, these days are. Let me start here. I had to Google last night when George Floyd was killed because I'm like, it couldn't have been a whole year yet, and it hasn't. George Floyd was killed in May, and here we are 1 year, not even a full year, but the same city, basically 10 minutes away from Minneapolis where George Floyd was killed, and now we're dealing with the murder of Dante Wright. And it's just, I don't know, so much is happening around us. It's like we're like on repeat. Have y'all seen Groundhog's Day, where every morning he wakes up and it's the same shit over and over and over again every single
It's like
day?
that. Yeah, it's like that documentary, or not documentary, that is that what it's called? That movie, is that what it's called? Because I don't know. It's the Netflix joint. Is that what you're talking
Well,
about?
no, this is a real old movie.
Oh.
But it's Two Distant Strangers is similar, very similar to Groundhog Day.
The Man Key. I watched it yesterday night.
perspective.
Yeah, it's exactly what you were telling us to watch the other night, Bubba.
Yeah.
And I decided to watch it yesterday night because I wanted to just like watch something that was quick so I can just get to bed. And I don't know why I decided to watch that. But
Rebecca,
it literally, Ben, it's like we wake up and this is from the perspective of a Black man, keeps waking up and dying different ways from police officers, at like every way that we've seen already. You know, knee to the neck, just walking away from the police officer being shot, going into the wrong apartment, and being shot, literally going to the grocery store, like just everything. And then I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but towards the end, like he tries his best and then still gets shot. And it's like the police officer, and he does the whole thing of it. You know how we see those viral videos of Black men and white police officers hand in hand, and it just makes everything better. When I saw that part in the movie, I was like, this is stupid, because that's like, it doesn't work. And literally it didn't work. And it just shows that police officers don't care. They will constantly kill with no reason, no matter how much you try to explain yourself, your situation, what needs to happen. It's just gonna be, it's like, there's no, I asked yesterday, talking to a friend, like, is this ever gonna stop? Like, it's ridiculous. And I know that we're constantly, this should not be our normal, that we have to cover this. Like you said yesterday, Bubba, it shouldn't be another Monday and another Black man dead. It shouldn't be like another shooting. And this should not have became my normal.
Right.
This should not ever have became my normal to be covering these kind of stories.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the movie or the film you guys are talking about. But it sounds like something I don't want to see. Like, I'm sure I'll go look at it, but it's just every single day it's the same thing, and it's not just it's some stories get the coverage and others don't, right? And I guess in this season with the cell phone footage, we're able to see and experience and see what's going on. In this case, it was the dash cam. In this case, it was the body cam of the officer. But at the end of the day, man, it's like America is committed to, if nothing else, America is committed to killing Black people. It just is, because they will make every excuse, any excuse that they could possibly come up with, they'll grab hold to it. She couldn't tell her gun from her taser, right? And even if like we believe that, which I don't, that's still a level of incompetence that means that a person like that should not be out on the streets with a gun in the first place. If you can't tell the difference between a gun and a taser, how the hell are you supposed to be out there to protect and serve? They're not out there to protect and serve. They're out there to be vultures, seeking any opportunity they can to do what they do, which is prey on Black people. There's a clip from Fox News, and I'm sure this is just going to make us more upset. But the reason I want to play this clip is because I want you guys to see, I want everybody to see that it's not just the police that we're fighting against. We're also fighting against a system that is there to protect those police from ever being held accountable for killing Black people. Let's take a listen into this clip from Fox News.
Does this change, do you believe, the reaction and the buildup to tonight?
All I can tell you is the reaction I've seen here on the street, and I think there is still a great deal of anger. And you get different people like Ben Crump putting things out on social media. So things are not necessarily any less angry because you still have a young Black man who has been killed at the hands of police. And when you have something like an accidental discharge, people aren't going to say that it's justified, and they're still going to default to the belief that police, that Black lives matter, and they think that Black people are treated somehow otherwise. What you do have out here on the ground, though, is bad weather. When it's cold, when it's wet, and it's miserable like this, it does have a tendency to tamp down the crowd. Sandra?
Hey. So I'm laughing because he's making no sense whatsoever, right? Everything he's saying makes absolutely no sense. But two, this is where we are, right? He was like, it's people are angry because Ben Crump put something out on social media, not because another Black man is dead. And he's like, people out here and they think Black Lives Matter. He slipped up and said, oh, they think Black Lives Matter. And then he had to fix it, say, oh, they don't think like Black Lives Matter. The whole point is that it's not only the police that we have to be concerned with, it's the entirety of this country. Even the president of the United States, we're going to play a clip for him in a minute. But first, it's the police kill somebody. And then you have this entire infrastructure, this entire media system that is there to make sure that they protect the police from ever being held accountable for what they do to Black people. Anyway,
you can play the next clip because I just want to get through. It's a lot because it's
Here's President President Biden, and let's just listen to what he had to say.
I haven't called Daunte Wright's family, but our prayers with their family. Is really a tragic thing that happened. But I think we got to wait and see what the investigation shows, and the entire investigation. You all watched, I assume as I did, the film, which is the body cam, which is fairly graphic. The question is, was it an accident? Was it intentional? That remains to be determined by a full-blown investigation. But in the meantime, I want to make it clear again, there is absolutely no justification, none, for looting, no justification for violence. Peaceful protest, understandable.
After saying we're going to give an option for justification for the shooting of Daunte Wright. Even though we saw the body camera, we have to go ahead and do due process, which is us giving an option for justification for Daunte Wright's death. Then ends with, the protesting and kind of using the word violence right after, I don't like it. I don't even like the whole setup of it all. And then starting off saying I haven't called the parents. Yeah, he hasn't called because he wanted to make sure that what he saw was what it was and that it wasn't an accident. So that's all I heard. That's all I saw. And we have to be careful because he's also, to me, a part of how the media is going to portray this as well. Mm-hmm. And that is my issue with a lot of our leaders. And I was watching yesterday, mainstream media, and they left out key chunks and parts of really vital information, like, how long she was holding the gun for at one point, or things like that. When it did come out that she thought it wasn't a taser, like this was an accident. they literally rolled with that so much that people started to believe that for a millisecond on social media. And then finally, when we saw the video, it was like, how could she have held that, pulled first of all, took it out the holster, pointed it at Dante, pulled the trigger, and you telling me that was an accident. There were so many times that she could have cleared that accident. You pulling it out, realizing, oh, this ain't it. You put your finger on the trigger of a gun, you know it's a gun. You know it's a gun. So this calling it an accident, having her leaders speak for her, trying to frame it as such, saying that she deserves due process. When we see video that shows us what happened, due process, it should go out the window. when we see video that shows us what happened, the only due process that should happen is her going to jail, putting on that suit, and that kind of process. But all of this right here, even our president is throwing this term around and the accidental word and saying we need more of an investigation. And that just tells me all that I need to know right there. Tells me all that I need to know.
And it's funny, somebody in the chat just has said the same thing, and you removed the safety. So you know what you were holding. It's a different weight in a different field, y'all. Yeah. Let's be honest. I've been to a gun range before, and I've shot a couple, and it's a different weight. Granted, a taser, now those tasers I'm sure is not as heavy, but I've held a couple of tasers before too. You can definitely tell the difference, man. You definitely can.
That's actually a really good point. Whoever made that in the chat room about the safety, because police officers do carry their guns on. There's only one group there's only one group of people who carry weapons who don't have the safety on, and that's the Secret Service. Police officers, it's standard procedure to have your safety on. So you mean to tell me she drew her weapon, took off the safety, and still didn't realize, oh, this is a different safety than it is on my. I'm sorry.
That's a hell of an accident.
That's a hell of an accident. And really think about it, y'all. If you're looking down the barrel of a gun, you telling me you aiming, and there's a yellow tip on those tasers. You don't see that yellow tip that whole time.
She had more than enough time to realize, oh shit, this is not a taser, and that's why I say. White folks just really, especially police officers, white folks in this world, I mean, they literally can just give an excuse, and then we're going to waste our damn time. And we're going to waste our damn time going to trial, covering the bullshit that they say all the time. And excuse me, guys, but I'm just so angry. Because it's so bad that I fell asleep last night. And I never seen the video of the shooting, by the way. Like, I just saw the pictures. But I fell asleep last night, and all I could dream of him calling his mom and the police officer shooting him. I literally was just dreaming. I kept having to get up and just pray because I just kept dreaming that. And I'm like, I can't get this out of my head. And this is so, like, the more that they run this they just are going to stretch this out with us, you guys. They're going to keep stretching this out with us just for us to really, just keep going through the trauma and then have to just be like, Black Lives Matter, and then make us look at the protest, and make us look at the protest and think that they're just doing this just to be violent. My
thing with due process is this: they never give us due process.
Nope.
No.
Never.
Nope.
They never know where are the cries for due process for George Floyd. Where are the cries for due process for Breonna Taylor? Where are the cries for due process for Michael Brown? Where are the cries for due process for Philando Castile? Where are the cries for due process? I mean, the list for Corey Jones, for Dante Wright, right? The list can literally go on and on because they were robbed of their due process. And see, in this case, in these cases, all of them, if you so much as sneeze, these saltine racists will find a way to justify your murder and the fact that you were not given due process while simultaneously saying give the police officers due process. And now to hear Joe Biden say there's no excuse for looting and rioting, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm sorry. They have stolen more from us than we could ever loot, number one. And number two, the life of a human being is worth more than any number of streets that we burn down. I do not. You don't turn this and put the responsibility on the people who have been victimized by the system, Joe Biden. You do not do that. You do not tell and make all the impetus, all of the burden on the people who are out there simply, especially when your cops that are in the streets are doing more to stop peaceful protesters. Because like I haven't seen anything burn yet. Has anybody seen anything like? I've seen a couple of fires. I haven't seen like a whole ass building burn down.
And because it's the same buildings or around the same, like the same ones are going to keep on burning down in these towns. Like, wherever we can get to, it's just going to be that. And, or they can get to, it's just going to be that. But why is the focus always going to be so much on that? And let me say something. You have the reporter, I don't know if we have that clip in our list, but Sidner off of CNN. I think it's Sarah Sidner but she is always on the scene. Mm-hmm. She's a reporter out there. And she's always on the scene. And I know that she was speaking with Don Lemon last night. And she was talking first to Cuomo. And she said, and basically what we're looking at is a reporter out there. And I know she was cussed out a few times because people look at her as mainstream media. So when she's interviewing, it's going to be like, why are you here? You're the one making it look like we're doing this for nothing. And and she's still there. So when they started throwing tear gas and all these things started going off, she was talking to Cuomo, and Cuomo was telling her to get out of there. And they panned the camera or they switched the shot over to in the studio with Cuomo. She says, he says, she needs to get out of there, whatever. She says, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Chris. She's in the background saying, let me tell you something, Chris. I'm not leaving here. I'm not leaving here because I'm a reporter here and this has become my town. I'm going to stay here. These are essentially my people. This is my community.
Yeah. And
he was like, well, I wasn't telling you to get out. I mean, I was just saying you need to get to safety at least. But she was just trying to let him know, like, I know that, but my job is really to be here and get the story and get these people and their real stories, even though they look at me as like, the mainstream media, but I have a job to do. And I think she was trying to say, without me here, I'm pretty sure the story would be totally different. So, it's important to have us out here doing this. And I specifically, I think independent media, because I got more information independently than I have watching mainstream media. Like I said, who leave key things out. And that's why I'm like, no, it's important to really say what happened, put it in perspective, especially here on mainstream media. I mean, because who's watching, especially the older people, they're going to be eating this up. And if you're going to just be saying, if you're going to half-ass it and not say what it is, and people are going to actually believe that due process is warranted to this officer who did not accidentally, as we watched that video, pull out her gun. She knew what she was doing.
So I mean, and
real quick,
go ahead, James.
Two things. One, they said in the chat room, a lot of people have said that those standard issue police Glocks do not have safeties.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're given to them without safeties. Excuse me. So the other one we had a super chat from,
that's why. Like, why?
That's why.
Okay.
Right. Now, but the tasers do have safeties and the yellow tip on them. So still,
then the same thing. She would have had to pull the
same thing.
Safety off.
You still have to pull the safety off of the taser. Okay. Next, Reverend Donna says, sent the super chat. I live 25 minutes from where Dante was murdered. This is what people of color deal with every day here. It took me almost a year to get my driver's license and tabs for plates. That's just terrible.
Exactly. That's exactly the question the reporter was asking. The reporter was saying how difficult it is in normal times, but we're in a pandemic to get what they need for those plates. And, okay, that's number one. Here's the other thing. I want us to look at this video that I just sent over to the team, and this is footage of how the police responded to protesters. Now, I believe this was in Portland, Oregon, but they were protesting on behalf of Dante Wright. And I want you to see the intensity that these police officers came down on the protesters. And I want you to remember January 6th, when those people were all out attacking the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, and police were standing by like, oh, We don't know what to do. Let's take a look at that clip. Did we see anything like that in response to the attack on their Capitol?
The terrorists. Let me tell you something. Ain't seen that damn police officer at the Capitol. And the ones that we didn't see that were doing the work either lost their lives or, you know, or were on like doing 17,000 jobs because their fellow police officers were actually a part of the terrorist attack. So it's crazy because I was listening to, or I was reading an article and it said, I don't remember where it came from, but it was talking about they had a lot of officers set in place for, because of the Chauvin trial, right? And, you know, they haven't had to deploy them, you know, they're just waiting until they get a verdict and then they were going to send them off. Those same ones that they had on hold, they now had to send over for this Daunte Wright murder.
They were ready.
Protest. So they were ready. They were ready for anything, and they were ready only for when it's Black folks, and when Black folks are may have to be enraged because of something that isn't right, and they have to get police officers, tanks, all of that. For those situations, they were ready. But the terrorist attack, so many people were getting calls about it already. Officials were told that this could possibly happen. I mean, we were even aware that something may be happening at the Capitol because these people were already talking about it.
They were saying it on social media.
So they were ready. They should have been ready as well. The preparation should have been there, but they did not care because the color of the skin of the people, the type of people, and who they supported. But here we are because we're calling out murderers. We're calling out racism. We're calling out white supremacy. We're calling out, you know, the difference here when it comes to Black folks and when it comes to white folks. And we're calling out the over exertion of power when it comes to police officers on people of color, specifically Black people, specifically Black men. So when we're doing that, I don't understand why we have to be police. We will burn this shit down if we have to. And that's what's important. That's what people need to know. And we're not, like she said yesterday, we're playing nice in that poem.
Yeah.
We're playing nice.
Valerie.
We're Valerie. Thank you for that. But we are playing nice because what's being done right now isn't nothing as what can or could be done, or what, in my opinion, what should be done. Because it doesn't seem that you guys aren't going to stop. So why think that we are? No matter how many police officers are out there. I saw a 17-year-old girl have to get work done on her teeth and go back out there because they shot she was punched, excuse me. She was punched by a police officer in her face, lost her teeth, a 17-year-old protester, and went back out there to protest again. So we have to understand like this. I mean, the more that you guys kill, the more that we will be out there. And even though the media is not covering the protests as much as they have in the past, they're out there. They are out there. Thanks to Chuck Modi for being out there and talking to the people on the ground. And you know, thanks to Georgia, you know, for doing what she does and putting her life on the line to make sure that she gets the story right there on the ground. I mean, like, it's very important because what the media is going to show is just people breaking in, especially they're going to pan in on people of color, breaking into places and making it look like they are thugs. Because remember when these protests were first happening back, you know, not a few years ago, like, back
feels like a few years ago, but yeah,
it feels like a few years ago, but Jesus. Yeah. But when the protesters started being played for us to see on TV, the words that were being thrown around were thugs, right? Or break-ins, or stealing and looters. But now we now have these people on the ground who can give us a different story from the people who are on the ground. So
I want us to take a real clear look at two things, and then we have an interview that's kind of it does parallel this a little bit. But before we get to that, I want us to look at a couple things over the next couple of days. The mayor of Minneapolis, who is a liberal, who was out there singing Kumbaya with the protesters a year ago after George Floyd was killed, but they shamed his ass. And now if you look at him operate, he's operating a part of the machine. He's not even trying to pretend to not be a part of the machine. A Democrat, he's a part of the machine. And he's going to institute curfews. He's going to send out the police. He's going to call out the National Guard. He's going to do everything he can to protect the state, right? That's number one. Number two, I want you to see exactly how many people are not going to be protesting this time around because Donald Trump is not in power. Joe Biden is. Right? There's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna see the same things. It's gonna be different because of the rhetoric, but it's not gonna be different in terms of the police force. The amount of police force that we're gonna see cracking down on protesters is gonna be the same. Now, mind you, it comes from every city and then it comes from the state. But at the same time, the words and the messaging coming from Joe Biden saying there's no excuse for looting or rioting. No, there's no excuse for killing us. Give a damn about a Dollar Tree. Somebody said in the chat room they burned down a Dollar Tree. All right, cool.
Yeah, it was
fine.
a Dollar Tree.
All right. So what? The cost of that Dollar Tree is not worth the life of Dante Wright. Period. And if they stop, and last but not least, before we go to a break, and then obviously like Rebecca and James, if y'all got anything else before we go to break, please jump in there. But the last thing is this. I said this yesterday, and I mean this, man. White supremacy. America has chosen white supremacy over its empire. America has chosen white supremacy over the ability for America to exist. In other words, white supremacy is going to be the thing that destroys this country. You know why? Because look at what happened on January 6th. They absolutely allowed white supremacy to go all the way to the steps of the Capitol and break into the Capitol and did nothing to stop it. You know why? Because the people who would have stopped it are white supremacists themselves. Police officers, people in the military, they are drenched in white supremacy. So of course, they're not going to stop their brothers, but what they will do, they will continue to shoot us. They will continue to execute us without due process in the streets. That's what they're going to continue to do. And you know what we're going to do in response? We're going to continue to give this country hell. And so the one thing that America is not able to stop from destroying it is white supremacy. You know why? Because it was founded on it. It thrived on it. And it became a part of how they think. 100% how these officers think is drenched in white supremacy. And you think that they're going to give that up in exchange for protecting America? No. They showed you that they would allow America to be destroyed for the sake of their ideology. And they're going to keep killing us and we're going to keep fighting back. And that's exactly how this country is going to fall apart because America chose white supremacy over democracy. And this is what we're living out every single day. All right. My kid is screaming like hell in the background. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to go get some ice. When we come back, we'll have more Like It or Not and we'll discuss these issues further. James, it's in your hands.
The same. You still loving the game? I know I don't. You cast your spell and I went under. I know the laughter.
Good morning again, everyone. Good morning again. We're glad that you're sticking with us, y'all. Make sure that y'all hitting that like button, share, comment, subscribe, y'all. So you know when Like It or Not is going down, y'all. So make sure that you stay tuned. In the meantime, we're going to read off our patrons, our new patrons. And as a matter of fact, we need to read the ones from yesterday as well, too. Because it looks like it didn't record yesterday. So we want to make sure that we get those read and said on the air. So if you're ready, here we go. New patrons, I hope y'all ready. Justice, good morning, good morning. Make sure that you're safe out there. Justice and the doctor are from that area, so please be safe out there. Chuck Diesel, good morning, sir. Good morning. We're going to see a brighter day, y'all. I promise we is. It's Truth the Dragon. Good morning, good morning. Laura, good morning. All right, y'all. Here are our new pastries. Here are our new patrons. These folks join our line Patreon, so welcome, welcome. We have Justin S., Tempest A., Tammy Fairy Girl Wolf, TV, Pokemon, I got you. Paul H, Savage, Sweetheart, what's going on, sister? DF Barnwell, Deanna M, Trevor P, Sarah M, Melanie G, and Cameron M. Those are all from our live Patreon, and these are new to the BPD Patreon. We have Tammy Fairy Girl Wolf, Brandon W, Eric D, Justin R, Russell M, Kirk G, Brenda Hush, S. Brown, who increased their pledge, Brittany B, and David T, who increased his pledge. And our new Patreons from yesterday. Mama said the sound is off. I don't know, Mama. I got you. I see. New patrons from Monday. We have Alexandra, Jay Miller, Mama Zing 2, love that name, Christina, Dawn P, Leon S, Rudo G, and Mike R. And shout out, yeah, they said my mic is hot. Yeah, and then shout out to our new Twitch subscriber, Industrial Arts, y'all. So shout out to all of you guys for joining the new Patreon, y'all. We make sure that y'all stay tuned and get ready for those Patreon parties, y'all. Gonna drop one more song for y'all until we get back to the show. Let's go. It's Truth the Dragon, right? Hey, Tunde, can you check my audio, please? Because I haven't made any adjustments on my microphone or anything. So make sure everything's good on the backside. And shout out to Todd Strove, who sent us a super chat. America says you can be anything you want here if you work hard enough. Then a black man became POTUS and they said, oh, not that. Knock him back down. Todd Strong, you right, sir. Check. What's from me won't be from me. Yeah, I'ma go through just to grow through. But pay me what you owe me for, I make what you've been saying about me true. Tell them I need my money right now. Shout out to everybody that's checking us out on Facebook and Twitch as well too. Make sure that you guys are hitting that like button, y'all. Share, comment, and subscribe, y'all, so you know what liking or not is going down. My loyalty, I let you in back then because I couldn't see. But now it's clear you ain't ever been true to me. My intuition ain't ever lied, I had to leave.
Welcome back to Like It or Not, where we're free to tell the truth and not care who doesn't like it. Joining us now is Leon Yin. He's an investigative journalist and data scientist at The Markup, which is a nonprofit newsroom focused on tech accountability. Leon's work centers around the effects of commercial content moderation and market dominance. Leon, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is ours. I came across your recent article, and because of the nature of the work that I do, in the YouTube space, and working with and oftentimes against the algorithm, your article stood out to me. Could you tell us about the keyword block list that you found and how it reflected the difference between how justice, social justice issues were treated as opposed to white lives matter?
Yeah. So last week, my reporting partner, Aaron Seck, and I released a two-part investigation looking at this block list. The first part, as you mentioned, is about hate, and the second is looking at social and racial justice. So a little background is that YouTube ads brings in $20 billion of revenue to its parent company, Google. And Google, the nervous system of the ads is their ad portal. So we looked at a specific thing called placements, which you can use to search for YouTube videos and channels related to something like skateboarding. So if I'm an advertiser, I'd put in skateboarding, and it would allow me to actually handpick the channels to place ads on. We found that not all searches return stuff. So a lot of it returns nothing. And we were able to distinct the difference between gibberish and something that would return nothing, like if I smashed my keyboard and just randomly pressed keys, versus terms that were blocked. And we did that by going behind the scenes and looking at the code being returned for like swears to see what was getting blocked and just a bunch of nonsense. So it kind of equates to getting like an empty envelope for gibberish and an envelope with an empty letter for gibberish and just an empty envelope for stuff that's blocked. And so we created keyword lists of hate and justice words with experts. So our social justice list, we worked with Color of Change, Miente, Media Justice, and Muslim advocates. And we sent that through that portal. And indeed, we found that terms like Black Lives Matter and Black Power were blocked, whereas the hate counterparts, White Lives Matter and White Power were allowed for search.
Wow. So I just want to unpack that a little bit for the audience. So using the methodology that you all established, you then took a list of keywords and you found that keywords like Black Lives Matter or Black Power, those words were blocked, while openly racist terms like White Lives Matter were not. What was the frequency, like what was the ratio of like justice terms that were blocked? And when we say blocked, like this ties directly to the ability of channels to monetize and make money off of these, right? Like, so when we post a video here, a lot of times we have to dance around the algorithm and not say specific words to make sure our videos don't get flagged. But then anytime we have to cover like a social justice issue, it's almost guaranteed to get flagged in so many cases. And what you're saying is that this is a part of that reality.
It essentially makes videos of those topics harder for advertisers to find and say, I want my ad to show up on this video. So that certainly is a financial impact of this work. And so the ratio, to get to your first question, we created really small keyword lists of well-known terms. And so the denominator is kind of small. So we looked at 86 hate terms and about 1/3 were blocked. And we found that for phrases that were blocked, if you just removed spaces, you could get around the block in almost all of them. And an innovative technique we developed called pluralization, where you add an S, also gets around the block. So white nationalists is blocked, but not white nationalists. When we look at social and racial justice, about 1/4 of terms were originally blocked.
Wow. So what are the implications on the implications in terms of how this is deployed, how it impacts content creators? You mentioned that it impacts advertisers, their inability to get access to those videos. And then the second question is have you had any response or feedback from Google with regards to what you found?
Yeah, so the response, we reached out to Google about 2 weeks before publication. We gave them everything. So when I say everything, I mean we gave them all the data from beak to butt, like all the raw code, basically how did we collect the data, how we analyzed it, nice spreadsheets to tap through. We also sent them detailed questions and 2 expertly reviewed methodologies that we created that explained how we did everything. And after 1 week, they got back and they only responded to our questions about the hate methodology. They said they had no problems with our findings, and they said, we did a bad job. We messed up on hate. We fixed the problem. And we also, any ads that you would have placed on any of those hate videos wouldn't have showed up because we have extra systems of protection. So it's all about opacity here. This block list was not publicly known. And this additional protection that they mentioned also was not previously known. They neglected to answer a single question we had about social and racial justice. They pretty much ignored it completely. And instead of taking terms off their block list like Black Lives Matter, they doubled down. They blocked even more terms. And these are terms that, there's no explanation to why they blocked terms like Black in tech, anti-racist, civil rights. It ended up being about 80% of terms now were blocked. And it was done in such a way that further study is difficult because they mix up the signals of what we originally found as a block to what was actually for obscure searches, so that empty response. So they swapped that to make it more difficult. And when we followed up with more questions, they stopped answering our emails completely, which is incredibly uncommon.
Wow. And so I guess there's my next question then you wouldn't be able to answer because they didn't answer it. Why they draw an equivalence between social justice terms and hate terms, right? It gets to this both sidesism, like this, where all, if you're fighting against injustices, you're just as bad as the people committing the injustices. And so they have no response to that kind of question whatsoever.
So they have a clear policy for hate speech and hate, and they say we don't abide by it. It's not advertiser friendly. It shouldn't even exist on our platform in the first place. So there, it's a little more clear. It's less clear why they block things like Black in Tech and Black Lives Matter. So we know that my reporting partner, Aaron Sankin, went through basically all the policies that YouTube has. And one of them is that they do not allow targeting on identity or belief. However, Black Lives Matter is not about, it's not targeted to a single identity, right? A lot of these, so there's not really an explanation to why these are blocked. So, and until they acknowledge this, what they've done, it's hard to say.
Fascinating. So what then, what are the conclusions that you all have in terms of you and your research partner, the data that you put out? Is it just, this is the way they're doing it? Was there any avenue to circumvent it in terms of the justice terms? Because again, like I said, like this is a prevalent problem in particularly in our spaces, because of our inability to even monetize videos discussing these types of things. And I know this, it's not one for one, the algorithm that we're up against versus the block list, but what are some of the things that you recommend in response to this? Or is it the reality that this is just what we're dealing with when we're using a platform like YouTube?
It's just another opaque system. And the strangest part is it's essentially a content moderation strategy, but it's all the way at the end. So rather than, at least for hate, rather than, getting rid of hate completely from the platform, they simply blindfold advertisers at the end. And so it's very downstream. I'm not sure what the implications are for social and racial justice. When we talked to a YouTuber named Jada Jones, she was disappointed to find YouTube's behavior. This is especially concerning considering last year, CEO Susan Wojcicki pledged $100 million to a Black Creators Fund, in which she said, at YouTube, we believe that Black Lives Matter, and we need to do more to dismantle systemic racism. It doesn't appear that they're dismantling anything. If anything, they're upholding a form of systematic racism by blocking social justice and racial justice terms and allowing hate terms to go by unfettered.
And that was the thing that stuck out in the article, was the fact that YouTube is trying to promote in their own way Black content creators. But when you really drill down into it, it's not particularly Black content creators who are fighting for social justice because of how those social justice terms are literally blocked on their platform. Am I hearing that correctly?
Correct. And there's no reason to think that advertisers don't want this either. Like, we talked to some advertisers like Ben & Jerry's, and they want to associate their brands with social and racial justice movements like Black Lives Matter. So it's, and also other brand support is up. Yesterday I saw an HP ad that had references to Black Lives Matter that was on YouTube. So it's really uncertain. It's unclear why they made this decision and why they decided to double down. And they've not explained why they've made these decisions.
Leon Yin, investigative journalist and data scientist for The Markup. Thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
The pleasure's ours. James, take us to a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up this morning, the public episode, and then we'll go to the after party, more like it or not, right after this.
Just another sunny day in Southern California. It's where the people came to play,
Thank you again to Leon here for joining us this morning. Really enjoyed that interview, sir. Y'all make sure that y'all hit that like button, hit that like button, hit that like button. Make sure that you share, comment, and subscribe, y'all, so you know when liking or not is always going down. Lavelle M, I already know. David, yes, I did.
It's been turning kind of gray in Southern California, but I'm allergic to the rain. What happened to euphoria? Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm too excited. Dark liquor with the palm trees. It's all
Not the jumper, S Truth Dragon. Kim, good morning.
You don't mean nothing to me. E-boys like you every dinner. I don't believe what you preach. You're just a rookie beginner. Hang out with boys in the street. Like that will make you a winner. I don't believe what I see. Are you wearing gold?
Mine too.
You're nothing more than silverware.
All right, shout out to everybody that's checking us out on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you streaming from. We greatly appreciate it, y'all. Make sure that you share, like, comment, subscribe, y'all, so you know when liking is going down. Mark S., good morning.
Why you calling me honey? Why you show off your money?
Hey. All right. So anyway, welcome back to Like It or Not. We're free to tell the truth. Becca, you over there? You there?
I'm here. No, I'm here. You can hear me, right?
James, I can hear you. No, I'm just really thinking how wild it is. You got these companies who love to put out statements and act like they really give a damn about black folks. But when you go just underneath the surface of what they're doing, I mean, we see this in Georgia, right? All these companies out here who are protesting now the Georgia suppression laws. You got Coca-Cola saying all this stuff. You got all these people, Delta saying this stuff. But when you go underneath the surface, you see that they're actually supporting. They give money and donate money to the Republicans who are doing the voter suppression. And now just listening to all that money that YouTube is saying that they're going to give to black content creators and how Black Lives Matter, they'll make a statement like that. But once you go underneath the surface, you see that they have social justice terms blocked right alongside all the white supremacist terms. So what are they really doing? What are they like they just want the surface level of blackness, but they don't want actual change. That's crazy to me. I mean, it makes sense, but that's crazy.
Yeah, just listening to him, it's just like, I mean, we know this kind of stuff, but then when it's, people have to do the research and show exactly where it's coming from, like we knew something was going on, but to know that they have these on a block list, right?
Yeah.
That, and that's what's causing white, and it's funny because it's when white people on their shows, on their political YouTube shows, talk about this, they go viral. Mm-hmm. They just go viral. When white folks talk about the same issues that we talk about, it's interesting, but they go viral, I guess, because, I know sometimes white people will come over to the black shows because, and I don't want to say this is everyone, but because of a form of white guilt. They want to find a place where they can, they feel sorry about what's going on, and they feel like if they watch our content and things like that, it's okay, right? They feel more comfortable. But a lot of other people rather hear it from white folks about what's happening. But we are the ones that are literally talking about our issues, and we're not, pulling any punches. We're talking about it as what they are, and also as a relatable point of view. Like Ben, Bubba, you guys walk outside the house, you have to worry about dying. Like you guys have to worry about dying, but yet have to come over here and cover this as, as people in this space, covering the news, covering these stories all the time. So I think it's more important to hear from our mouths, but YouTube just highlights like 10 Black folks, and that makes it diversity and inclusion. And they'll highlight those people. You know how I feel about that. They'll highlight those people in these spaces in politics, about 10 of them, just to make sure that if we question their motives and we question their lack of representation, they can pull that out of diversity and inclusion and say,
look
here,
at this one.
This is what we have.
Yeah.
But yet,
when the rubber meets the road, man,
it shows us that you guys are actually doing more in the background to push us further away from getting
resources,
getting any views,
man,
from getting any eyes. And that's the problem. Yeah, that's a big problem.
That's a real thing. Like it's the difference between a channel. Well, let me go this angle on it, right? They love Black content creators if we're entertaining them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We'd be dead ass rich. I mean, we'd be so rich right now if we were doing pranks, if we were doing sketches, if we were doing and this is the kind of content that they reward, right? But now we out here talking about social justice. We're talking about Black Lives Matter. We're talking about, police brutality and all that stuff. No. We're not going to promote that. And we're not even going to allow brands that want to be associated with that. Because Ben & Jerry's is down. Like you look at Ben & Jerry's Instagram timeline, like they down for the cause. They want to be associated, but they can't even find us because of our terms, the stuff that we talk about. And it's not just written. It's not just about us putting it in the description. Like, you know how you go to a video and there's a title and then there's the description. It's not about that. It's also, they have the algorithms that analyze every word that we say, right? I can just say, and then the point being that they block our stuff from being supported by companies that want to be associated with this. And then they want to turn around and say Black Lives Matter and, we're going to give a $100 million grant to content creators, but you're not really, are they really supporting Black content creators, or they're just supporting the Black content creators that aren't challenging the system?
I just want to, and before we get there, there's somebody in the chat, and I know we're about to leave, but I wanted to address, my views are my own. That didn't come from Ben's mouth. They came from mine.
What's that?
That about, some people having white guilt, and it's not something that you can control. A lot of you guys probably, and this is from me, when a lot of people feel like they need to go somewhere to try to make it better, they don't know what to do, they'll come over here. And that just is something that's normal. They'll come over here or to any other Black content and support them. So one person says, wow, I even missed you all this week while you were down. If you don't want this poor white girl watching, I am out of here. So sad. You were the best morning news. Nobody said get out of here. It's crazy. People feel like it's so personal. You see what I'm saying? Ain't nobody even talking about you. We literally are talking about how we are given the short end of the stick in this space, right? And I was just saying that even with, it doesn't matter who's watching, they're going to give Black content creators in the YouTube space the short end of the stick. No matter if
the man literally just got off the screen saying that.
That's what I'm saying. But because I called out something that makes people uncomfortable, and it wasn't meant to make you uncomfortable. It's just our truth. This is really our truth, guys. You guys are here, and we have to really discuss our truth from how we live it. And it may make you uncomfortable at times, but this is just what it is. And even if you guys are watching what I'm saying, we still don't get paid for it. Like, we're here because we want to do this. And we're glad to have each and every one of you watching, so that's on that. I just want to
it's a much broader conversation. It's like literally,
we can go in.
It's not even about this channel per se, right?
Yeah.
It's literally the data that he pulled and his partner pulled shows that it is structural on YouTube, that terms about social justice are blocked, and it is a part of what they do at YouTube, while they simultaneously say that they're supporting Black lives. So this is it goes so far beyond just this channel, but it is inclusive of this channel. So when we speak about these things, it's like, is it uncomfortable? It shouldn't be. To be quite honest with you, there's literally nothing that should have been uncomfortable about the conversation that we just had, because let's be real. Let's be realistic. When you brought up like how white people, and we'll go to the after party and discuss this more. You're talking about how like white people who discuss, I think about Tim Wise, right? Tim Wise is a white guy who made his entire career off of talking about racism, right? And it's like there are bonus points that are given in that category. It made me think of that silly video that's out now of this girl. I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, of this white woman dancing, and she wasn't really even dancing anything serious, and she was braiding a braid at the same time. And it was like, oh
Viral.
my God, like, oh, this is the most amazing thing. And I'm like, okay.
You see, no, seriously.
Like, sure, okay, if that's what you guys like, but she was just up there like, and I'm like, all right, if that's what the viral hit is with this week, that's what the viral hit is. But at the same time, it's like we have to recognize the structural things that are happening around us. And we are so outgunned and outfinanced and outfunded. They have enough money on the opposition side. They have enough money on the side of white supremacy to fund tens of thousands of paid trolls to be in comment sections across all of social media every single day as their full-time job. We don't have those kind of resources here as we fight for social justice. And you would think that in a space like YouTube and Facebook and all these places, that it would be like an equalizer, where if your content is good and people can hear it, and you can raise money and you can support what you're trying to do. But we're literally finding out that that's absolutely not
the case. And even if we have, like I said, I thought if white people are watching us, it must mean that we're doing something good. Like we're sending out a message, we're doing a lot of that, and that we can, now that we have, this audience as well, we're, the next video that plays after this one will still be Benjamin Dixon, right? Not CNN, not Fox,
right?
Not all these other people. And sometimes, Ben, when I'm watching it myself, a white news person or a white person in the space that covers politics will be next.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get that. I don't get it at all.
But you're never going to get a recommendation from CNN. I've seen so many recommendations they take them from the Benjamin Dixon show and Like It or Not to CNN. You're never going to see one coming from CNN
to go to Benjamin Dixon. And that is a problem. But we can have this conversation. I mean, this goes into every single different realm. We can break this down into different departments, because all of those factor into why Black content, especially ones that cover social injustices and politics and all these type of things, won't be monetized, or it'll take them forever to be monetized. They have to start tap dancing a little bit or add somebody white on the show, and that's what will make it happen.
And there's one other part of this. It's not it, and then we'll go to we keep saying we're gonna go to the after party. We ain't going yet. We go. We got
2 more minutes.
Here's the other side of this. It's white supremacy is what drives this entire system. And even if you are like a white progressive and you're doing in this space, right? There's a cap for you too. Case in point, look at the protests last year. All those white people who are out there protesting on behalf of George Floyd, right? And they were really surprised to see that the police state that we saw this morning, and they're seeing in Minneapolis and Colorado, a lot of people were surprised to see that those police were unleashed on white folks the same way that they were unleashed on Black folks. And they were like, wait a minute, no, we didn't expect this.
Hello.
That's because they were fighting on behalf of Black lives. And what I'm trying to tell y'all is that this entire system that was built and born out of white supremacy is sustained by white supremacy. And you could be a well-meaning white person, but as soon as you stand up to literally fight on behalf of white supremacy, you'll find out exactly how far you can't go, because the system will crush you just like everybody else, because the system is not just America. The system is white supremacy in America. That's why in the middle of all these conversations we're having, in the middle of everything that we're fighting for, you have somebody like Tucker Carlson, who not only has one show on Fox News, now he has 2 shows on Fox News. And now you have people like Ben Shapiro who have they spend $100,000 a month on advertising on Facebook alone. This is the kind of resources that are being brought. The money that's being poured into stopping us from fighting back against white supremacy is like nothing we have on the left at all whatsoever. And so anyway, we're gonna pick this up in the after party. James, give us a little bit of music, because we gonna probably turn up.
Pastor.
We're gonna turn up a little bit more in the after party.
Let's take it to the overflow.
All right, folks. Everybody, thank you so much. Click the like, share, subscribe button. Become a patron. Patreon.com/like it or not. And we will see you in the after party. Oh, Twitch. We've been having problems with our stream, but if you need access to the stream, you know how to email our producer, David, and we will see you there.